साधकं सदा विमुक्तिसाधकम् कलाधरावतंसकं विलासिलोकरक्षकम् अनायकैकनायकं विनाशिते भदैत्यकम् नताशुभाशुनाशकं नमामि तं विनायकम् न ते तरातिभीकरं नवोदितार्कभास्वरम् न मत्सुरारिनिर्जरं न ताधिकापदुद्धरम् सुरेश्वरं निधीश्वरं गजेश्वरं गणेश्वरम् महेश्वरं तमाश्रये परात्परं निरन्तरम् समस्तलोकशङ्करं निरस्तदैत्यकुञ्जरम् दरेतरोदरं वरं वरे भवत्रमक्षरम् कृपाकरं क्षमाकरं मुदाकरं यशस्करम् मनस्करं नमस्कृतां नमस्करोमि भास्वरम् अकिञ्चनार्तिमार्जनं चिरन्तनोक्तिभाजनम् पुरारिपूर्वनन्दनं सुरारिगरुमचरुमणम् प्रपञ्चनाशभीषणं धनञ्जयादिभूषणम् कपोलदानवारणं भजे पुराणवारणम् नितान्तकान्तदन्तकान्तिम् अन्तकान्तकात्मजम् अचिन्त्यरूपमन्तहीनम् अन्तरायकृन्तनम् हृदन्तरे निरन्तरं वसन्तमेव योगिना तमेकदन्तमेव तं विचिन्तयामि सन्ततम् महागणेश पञ्चरत्नम् आदरेण योऽन्वहम् प्रजल्पति प्रभातके हृदि स्मरन् गणेश्वरम् आरोगतामदोषतां सुसाहितीं सुपुत्रताम् समाहितायुरष्टभूतिम् अभ्युपैति सोचिरा
सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ नमो भगवते वैवस्वताय मृत्यवे ब्रह्मविद्याचार्याय नचिकेतसे च। Humble prostrations to one and all. So in the last class, we were discussing verse number 4. Duramete viparite vishuchi avidyaya cha vidyeti jnata vidyabhipsinam nachiketasam manye natva kama bahavo lolupanta. Nachiketa, these two paths, the path of preyas and the path of shreyas, duram vipirite, they are extremely opposite to each other. And vishuchi means having different goals, different objectives. These two paths are mutually exclusive and opposite in direction. What do you mean mutually exclusive? Mutually exclusive means you cannot practice both of them simultaneously. For example, like watching TV and sleeping, it is not possible. Running and standing simultaneously, it is not possible. So this is the meaning mutually exclusive. Simultaneously, one after the other, that may be possible. But at the same time, you cannot practice both. So this path of preyas and the path of shreyas, it is something like that. You cannot meditate on God and at the same time indulge in sense pleasures. You cannot fix mind in both simultaneously. Either you are indulging in the pleasure, you are enjoying the pleasure of the world, or you are enjoying the bliss of the self. Together they cannot go. This is the meaning. One is the path outside, the other the path inside. Simultaneously it is not possible. So duramete vipirite vishuchi, these two paths are extremely opposite to each other. What are these paths? Avidya and vidya. So different names are given. The path of preyas is also called as path of avidya. The path of shreyas is also called as path of vidya. Sometimes the terms used are pravritti and nivritti, the path of action and the path of knowledge, or the path of withdrawal, nivritti. Path of shreyas is also called as path of withdrawal because you have to withdraw and look within. So such a usage is also found. So jnata, the knowers, the learned ones, they know that these two paths are mutually exclusive and opposite to each other. Now if we analyze these two paths, how can we say they are opposite to each other? So there are very many factors. The path of preyas takes you to samsara, while the path of shreyas takes you to moksha, freedom, liberation. The one binds you to the world, the other liberates you from the world. The one makes you dependent on the world. The path of preyas makes you dependent on the world. The path of shreyas makes you independent of the world. Now see, both of them are opposite. The path of preyas makes you a slave of your mind and the senses. The path of shreyas makes you a master of your mind and the senses. The path of preyas takes you away from your own true nature. The path of shreyas takes you towards your true nature. The path of preyas can give you only finite results with finite actions, whereas path of shreyas gives you infinite results. The path of preyas intensifies your ignorance. The path of shreyas removes your ignorance. The path of preyas is full of the pleasure of the world. Path of shreyas is full of the bliss of the self. Path of preyas makes you a mortal being. Path of shreyas makes you an immortal being. Path of preyas strengthens your ego. Path of shreyas dissolves your ego. Path of preyas makes you a karta and a bhokta, doer and enjoyer. Path of shreyas makes you akarta, abhokta, non-doer, non-enjoyer. In path of preyas, what is needed is application of the mind and the senses. In the path of shreyas, what is needed is withdrawal of the mind and the senses. Path of preyas is generally followed by the foolish people. The path of shreyas is the ones taken by the wise people. The path of preyas is nothing but sense indulgence. The path of shreyas is sense discipline. The path of preyas is a path of hoarding and aggrandizing. The path of shreyas is a path of renunciation and sacrifice. In the path of preyas, you hoard laukika sampat, the worldly wealth. In the path of shreyas, you are more interested in daivi sampat, the divine virtues of life. In the path of preyas, you get identified with the BMI. In the path of shreyas, you get disidentified with the BMI. In the path of preyas, you do everything to please your own individual self. In the path of shreyas, you do everything to please the Supreme Self, to please the Lord. In the path of preyas, you do everything for your own welfare. In the path of shreyas, you do actions for the welfare of the totality, for everyone. So in this way, you can have plenty of reasons why these two paths are opposite to each other. Duramete viparite vishuchi, two paths totally different. Path of preyas and the path of shreyas. Now what does Yamarāja say? Nachiketa, vidyābhipsinam Nachiketa sammanye. I consider you as a vidyārthi, as a seeker of knowledge, as a shreyārthi, as a seeker of the path of shreyas. This is what I find in you. Why do you say so? I say so because natva kama bahavaha alolupanta. I kept all kinds of worldly temptations in front of you, but you were not deluded or tempted by these pleasures. So therefore I can for sure say that you are a shreyārthi, you are a vidyārthi. Now not only in this, in the earlier story also, if you see the story of Nachiketa with his father, in that story also you will find that Nachiketa was always a vidyārthi only, a shreyārthi. His father had written everything in his name. So if he had been a preyārthi, when father was giving away all the old dilapidated cows, he would have kept quiet, because after all he is the one who is going to gain. He would have kept quiet. But then what did Nachiketa do? he did not keep quiet. Why? Because if this action goes on, my father will end up in hell, he will only suffer. So my action should be such that it brings about all around welfare for everyone, not just welfare for me. Now see, if it is the case of welfare for me, I would just keep quiet and all the wealth will anyway come to me. But if I want the welfare of everyone, I will have to sacrifice myself. So then what happened? Father, because Nachiketa did the self-sacrifice, father's welfare and well-being was taken care. His seat in the heaven was ensured. See, so his welfare. And because everything is given to the society, so therefore the welfare and well-being of the society is taken care. And now as far as Nachiketa is concerned, he is getting the greatest knowledge, the knowledge of the self. So therefore Nachiketa's welfare is also taken care. So this action of Nachiketa of sacrificing himself, now see, this action, will it come under preyas or shreyas? You will find this action comes under shreyas. He does not deviate from the path of righteousness. So therefore, we must say Nachiketa is truly a vidyārthi, a seeker of knowledge, and not a sukharthi, a seeker of comfort, a seeker of pleasure. Now here, Bhagavan Shankaracharya makes a very beautiful statement. Bhagavan Shankaracharya says, Nachiketa, you are a vidyārthi because navichedam kritavantaha shreyo margat. Nachiketa, you did not deviate from the path of shreyas. Therefore, you are a shreyārthi. Now here, one point we have to keep in mind. We are all seekers of the truth. Now, in which category do we fall when we analyze? Many times we find that under tempting conditions, we falter, we fall. This happens to all seekers. Because the path of spirituality is very, very slippery. Every now and then we will have to slip. We will have to get, tempted by the objects, and we yield to these temptations also because the vasana pressure is so much. For very many births we have lived like a preyārthi. So when we try to become shreyārthi, it is not easy. We come under the powerful influence of preyas, and therefore we yield to temptations in life helplessly. This is the case with all seekers. Now the question is, when we helplessly yield to temptation, are we a preyārthi or do we still continue to be a shreyārthi? Now this has to be analyzed. Now please understand, who is a preyārthi? Preyārthi is the one, when he indulges in the pleasures, what is the end result? He is happy with it. Now see the difference. When a preyārthi indulges in the pleasure, he is happy and he seeks more and more such pleasures in the future. So such a person is called a preyārthi, the one who has kept preyas as the artha, as the very goal of life. So therefore he indulges in pleasure, and his conclusion is this pleasure is happiness, and therefore he looks forward to indulgence more and more in future. Such a person is called a preyārthi. What about a shreyārthi? Yes, under the pressure of vasanas, sometimes he yields to temptation. He indulges in pleasure, but then what is the end result? There is guilt, there is conscience prick. You feel, "Yo, what have I done? I am not supposed to do it. I am a seeker of truth, and what have I done? I have fallen." So this kind of guilt feeling comes to all the seekers when they yield to temptation. Now the question is, has he become a preyārthi because he has fallen? The answer is no, because still his artha is shreyas only. Even though he has fallen, his goal continues to be shreyas and not preyas. After falling, if there is a guilt feeling, if there is a conscience prick, if you are a true seeker, then this will happen. If there is a guilt feeling, understand you are still a shreyārthi only. In fact, this is how we evolve in the path of spirituality. The moment we are careless, we slip and fall, and after fall, there is a feeling of guilt. And when the feeling of guilt comes, you take a vow that next time this should not happen. You are determined that such a thing should not happen in the future. You take a vow, you are more careful. Few days you are careful and slowly carelessness creeps in. And when you are careless at some point of time, again you yield to that temptation. Again you fall. Again that guilt feeling comes. Now the guilt feeling is little more stronger. You are more miserable. And now you are more careful. You again take a vow that next time this should not happen. You are more careful, you are more alert. And this continues for some days, and again unknowingly you become careless, and when you are careless, suddenly again you fall. Again when you fall, again the guilt is very strong. The pain, the conscience prick is very intense. Because when you fall from a more spiritually evolved state, the fall is a greater fall, and greater fall means greater conscience prick. So you become extremely miserable, and in that misery again you take a vow that next time I will be very, very careful. You are determined. So there is more of alertness. So in this way you become more and more alert, more and more alert, more and more alert. More and more careful, more and more careful. And again, at rare times, again you fall. And every time you fall, you become miserable like fish out of water. You get suffocated by that conscience prick. But that suffocation is a blessing in disguise, because that makes you more alert, more serious, more focused, more concentrated, more determined. And finally a time comes when you are able to win over all temptations of the world. This is how every seeker has to grow. So that's why Swami Vivekananda said, thousands of times you will have to fall in this path, but don't worry, again get up, again walk. So as long as your goal is shreyas, so long you will have to be considered shreyārthi in spite of falling umpteen number of times. As long as you have not deviated from the path of shreyas, as long as you have not kept preyas as the goal of life, as long as you have not given up the struggle in the spiritual path, so long you continue to remain a shreyārthi. So this we must understand. Right, now the next verse is a strong criticism of all those people who walk the path of preyas. So verse number 5, page number 75. A very famous verse. Avidyāyamantare vartamānāh swayam dhīrāh panditam manyamānāh dandramyamānāh pariyanti mūಢāh andhenaiva niyamānā yathāndaah. Avidyāyamantare vartamānāh swayam dhīrāh panditam manyamānāh dandramyamānāh pariyanti mūಢāh andhenaiva niyamānā yathāndaah. Yes, So here is a description of people who walk the path of preyas. So what is their lifestyle? What do they think about themselves? And what happens to them? All these things are discussed here. So what is their condition? Avidyayam antare vartamanaha. Vartamanaha, they are living. Where are they living? Avidyayam antare, in the midst of ignorance. They are living in the midst of ignorance. But what do they consider about themselves? Swayam dhiraha panditam manyamanaha. What do they consider about themselves? That we are dhiras, we are very wise people, intelligent people. Panditam, very learned people. We are learned, wise, intelligent. But what happens to them? So Shruti Mata says, Dandramyamanaha. Dandramyamanaha means these are the people who will follow various crooked ways under delusion. Because of delusion, they follow various crooked ways. And what happens to them? Pariyanti mudha. So these mudhas, these foolish people, though they may consider themselves as dhiraha and panditaha, etc., but actually they are mudhas. The Upanishad says, they are mudhas, foolish people. What happens to them? Pariyanti. They go round and round. Round and round means what? Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. Again and again, falling back into this transmigratory world. Again and again experiencing birth and death. So this is what happens to them. But unfortunately, these are the people who are the leaders in the society. Andhena niyamanayathandaha. So they are the people who lead the people. So when these people lead others, how is it? So Upanishad says, it is like blind leading the blind. Andhena niyamanayathantaha. So these are the people who walk the path of preyas. So this whole verse is about what happens to them. So what is their condition? Avidyayam antare vartamanaha. So they live in the midst of avidya. So now see this. Avidya means what? Ignorance. They have no understanding about what is the right way of living. They have no understanding. They are totally ignorant about it. So now once a person doesn't have the right understanding about life, what will happen to his life? The entire life will be lived in a wasteful way. As Bhagavad Gita says, Moghasha moghakarmanaha moghatjnana vichetasaha rakshasim asurim chaiva prakritim mohinim shritaha. This will be the lifestyle of a person who doesn't have the right understanding about life. Moghatjnana, his understanding is vain, and therefore naturally his hopes, his desires, his future plannings, his actions, everything will be in vain. His goal of life in vain. So therefore, in short, what happens when you don't have the right understanding about life? The whole life is wasted. Bhagavad Gita says, Rakshasim asuri mohinim prakritim shritaha, it is said. The tendency is asuric, rakshasic and deluding. Asura means the one who indulges in sense pleasures. Such a person is called asura. Asusuramante iti asura. The one who indulges in the senses. And who is a Rakshasa? Rakshasa is the one who harms others. for selfish ends. So asuras and rakshasas. So they become like asuras and rakshasas. That's what Bhagavad Gita says there, because of their own delusion. Now here, the same thing is mentioned. Avidyayam antare vartamanaha. So the first and the foremost thing is they have no idea about right ways of living. They are in avidya. But what do they consider themselves? Swayam dhiraha panditam manyamanaha. They consider themselves as intelligent people, learned people. In the society, you will find umpty number of people, because majority of the people fall under this category. And they are the ones who will discourage us in walking the path of spirituality. They are the ones who will start advising us against spirituality. So when they come to know that we are attending some spiritual class, some Gita class, some Upanishad class, they will come with lot of arguments against this, against our classes. So what are the general arguments? So you will find them saying, why do you have to attend all these spiritual class? See, in this world, there are so many people who are successful, who are prosperous, who are happy, who are fulfilled, even without this spirituality. There are so many people without this spirituality also, they are so happy and fulfilled and prosperous. So what is the need for you to study this? This is one argument. And according to them, they have this idea that normally these spiritual people, the sadhus, the sannyasis, etc., they are failures in life. Why failures? They were failures in their professional front. They could not succeed in any profession. Or there is a broken relationship, failed relationship. So therefore, from the professional front, they were failures. At the relationship, they were failures. So because they could not succeed anywhere in life, so finally they became this sannyasi sadhu. With a pessimistic attitude towards life, considering that everything in this life is nothing but sorrow and misery. So with a pessimistic attitude, they have taken to this path. So they are nothing but failures in life. Another term they use is escapists. They are escapists. They escape from the challenges of life, from the problems of life. True manliness is to face the challenges of the world, but this man, he could not face the challenges. He did not have the strength to face the challenges, so therefore he escaped from the world, escaped from the challenges of the world, and now he has buried himself in some cave in the Himalayas, wasting his time in total idleness. Why is he sitting there? He could not face the world, therefore he is sitting there. Now, this is the way they argue. So who are these spiritual people? They are escapists and they are failures. Now why did they take the spiritual path? The spiritual path is the easiest way, according to them. Spiritual path is the easiest way. You just put on one ochre color cloth and people will just prostrate unto you. They will respect you, they will love you, they will feed you, and they will give some donation also. So you get everything, money, food, respect, love, without doing anything, just putting on ochre color cloth. And India is famous for it. In India, we respect sadhus, sannyasis. So therefore, the best way to earn respect, love, food, everything, all comforts of life is become a sadhu. So if you are good for nothing in every field, then the best thing is you become a sadhu. This is the way they argue. So these sadhus, they are escapists, they are failures, and they are totally unproductive because the fellow is sitting idle all whole day. Society is not benefited because of their presence. They are only leeches in the society. They only take from the society, they don't give back anything to the society. This is their understanding. And they live on bhiksha. And in this country, bhiksha is glorified. Taking alms, it is glorified in this country. And finally what has happened? India has become a land of beggars, according to them. And that is why India is so poor. Why is this country poor? Because everybody is a beggar. Why everybody is a beggar? Because begging is glorified in this country. This country, the land of spirituality, here begging is glorified. So everybody has become a beggar. And therefore see, compare this country with the Western country, that Western countries are so prosperous. Why? Because of their hard work. And India has become a very poor country. All because of these sadhu sannyasis, all because of this spirituality. So this spirituality is the cause because of which this country has been doomed. What is the cause of our backwardness? The cause is spirituality. So the best thing we can do is eliminate all these sadhus and sannyasis. This is their understanding. Right. Now you ask them, do you believe in God? Then he will answer, what God? I am a rational human being. That which appeals to reason alone I believe. That which cannot be proved, I don't believe in such things. So I don't believe in God. After all, why do you need God? In this world, every phenomenon can be explained through reason, through science, through analysis, through investigation. In this world, everything can be understood. So why do you need a God? There is a cause-effect relationship in everything that is happening in this world. So we don't need a God. Even those things in the past, all those things which they considered a divine phenomenon, today we know through science that it is not divine, it is just a natural phenomenon. Very many magic these Babajis show. Today we have clear scientific explanation that it is not a magic, it is nothing but a particular scientific phenomenon. So therefore, the more and more the science is evolving, the more and more we are able to get answers which earlier they used to consider spiritual, etc. And a time will come when the science will be able to explain everything in the world. So therefore, why do you need a God? I don't believe in God because His existence cannot be proved. I believe in only that which can be proved. Because I have a scientific temperament. I believe in science. So this is the way they will see. And you say that there is God, isn't it? Now if there is God, and according to you, this God is a compassionate God, all-knowing God, all-pervading God, all-powerful God, this is your opinion. If there is such a God, then why is it that there is so much of poverty in this world? Why is it there is so much of corruption in this world? Why is it that there is so much of injustice in this world? If you say that there is an all-powerful God and you say that even a dust will not move without His permission, so then you say that God knows everything. If He knows everything, why is it that there is so much of poverty, corruption, pain, suffering, disease, etc.? If He is all-powerful, He should be able to solve everything. So the very fact that the world has so much of problems and these problems are not being solved, that itself is a proof that there is no God. This way he argues. Okay, sir. Please tell us, how then we should live our life? What is the way to live our life? So then he will say, the way to live life is dream big and chase your dream. This is the way to live. Only when there is some desire, only when you have a dream, only then the best will come out of you. These spiritual people, they say desirelessness. No! If you are desireless and contented, then the best will never come out of you. You will only become lazy. You become a good for nothing fellow. So desirelessness should never be the goal. You must have a desire. You must have a dream to chase. Higher the dream, the better, because the best comes out of you only when you dream high. So chase your passion. This way, live a life full of self-effort. There is nothing called God's grace, etc. There is only one thing, effort, effort, effort. See the greatness of human beings. They have reached even moon through effort. So anything is possible with self-effort. So that is the most important thing. So how should we live our life? Live your life chasing your dreams. Be passionate about your dream. This is the way you must live. So the best comes out of you, and in this way the society is also benefited with your contribution to the society. This way you must live. Sir, now you ask this person, what is your opinion about truthful living? Then this person will say, in this world, it is just not possible to live truthfully. See all those people who have lived truthful life. Gandhiji was shot dead. Jesus was crucified. See, they were all the people who lived for truth. What happened to them? They were crushed. In this world, if you live a life of truthfulness and humility, etc., you will become a doormat. People will treat you like that. So therefore, some amount of crookedness is necessary. You will have to be street smart if you have to succeed in life. Because the world is such. It is only the corrupt people who succeed. People who have influence, people who are wealthy, they are the ones who are able to manipulate the laws, and they are the ones who truly enjoy in this world. Not the poor ones. Poor ones are thoroughly exploited. So therefore, in life, we cannot succeed if we follow the path of truth. Now this is their understanding. They will quote also, टेढ़ी उंगली से ही घी निकलती है, in Hindi they say. If you want to take this solidified, what you call, ghee, clarified butter. So if it is solidified, and if you want to take it, straight finger will not help. Then what you have to do? You have to make the finger crooked, and then only the ghee can be taken out. So this is the example they give. So in the same way, if you have to succeed in this world, you will have to be a little crooked. You will have to be a little worldly smart. Only then you can succeed in life. Now this is their philosophy about life. So this is the way they think about life. Now if you ask them, okay sir, what about death? Is there life after death? So then they will say, what is it? There is nothing called life after death. You must understand what is life. What is life? So many chemicals have come together, and as a byproduct, life has appeared. This consciousness, life, etc., what you say, it is only it's a byproduct of chemical combination. Because the whole world is nothing but chemicals. They are nothing but elements, and all these elements are classified in the chemistry. So these chemicals come together, and because of some byproduct, life has come. But anyway, the science is doing investigation. A time will come when we will know what this life is, what this consciousness is, etc. A time will come when we will have a clear understanding about it. But this is it. Life is nothing but a byproduct of all chemical combination. But sir, everything is inert. How can a sentient thing come because of the combination of inert thing? That I will tell you. You see, you take beetle leaf, it is green in color. Then you take lime, it is white in color. Then you take that nut, beetle nut, it is brown in color. And when that person chews it, what is the color which comes out? It is red, isn't it? You see, green leaf, white lime, brown nut. Together when you chew, what happens? The color is red. Now redness is not there in any of these three, but it has come, isn't it? In the same way, these chemicals combine and some reactions happen, and out of this reaction comes this phenomena called life. So this you have to understand. It is possible that something new can come as a byproduct of combination of so many chemicals. So this is what is life. So therefore the point is this: once the body decays and dies, there is nothing called life, because the body has gone back to its elements. The combination has caused a phenomenon called life. Now once that combination is dispersed, dissolved, there is nothing called life. Bhasmi bhutasya dehasya punaragamanam kutaha. Once a body has been reduced to ashes, how can you expect that body to come back? Therefore, there is nothing called life after death. It is all mere imagination. There is nothing called life after death. So therefore, what should be the purpose of life? There is nothing called punya, papa and all. There is only one purpose: every moment enjoy. Sir, what is the way to enjoy? Eat, drink and be merry. Yavat jivet sukham jivet. Ram kritva ghritam pibet. Bhasmi bhutasya dehasya punaragamanam kutaha. So this is the philosophy of Charuvakas, the materialistic people. The materialistic people are called Charuvak, those whose words are very sweet. Charu means sweet. So this is their philosophy. Yavat jivet sukham jivet. As long as you are living, live happily. Take care of all comforts and conveniences. Indulge in all pleasure, because pleasure gives you happiness. So whatever gives you happiness, indulge in it. Fulfill all your desires. This way, live a happy life as long as you live. Yavat jive sukham jivet ranam kritva ghritam pibet. If necessary, beg, borrow or steal, and indulge in all the best in life. Because once the body has gone into ashes, there is no coming back. So as long as you are living, live a happy life, life fulfilling all worldly desires. Now this is called materialistic viewpoint about life. So they also say, live in the here and now. They will also say, live in the here and now. Now see, this statement is made by spiritual people, living in the here and now. But they will also use, rank materialists also use the same term, living in the here and now. Means what? As much as possible, every moment convert into indulgence in sense pleasure, because every moment can be turned into a moment of happiness, and the only way to be happy is indulgence. The only source of happiness is world. So every moment, convert it into a moment of happiness. Don't waste any moment. Maximize your happiness by maximizing your indulgence. So live in the here and now, and don't go to the future. Don't unnecessarily think about, future. Live in the present. Let your attention be upon the pleasure you are deriving from the sense objects. So this is what you have to do. Unnecessarily don't think about life after death, etc. There is nothing, no such thing. So therefore don't worry about punya papa also. There is no such thing, because once the physical body is gone, your existence is gone. you are a nobody, you are nothing. So this is their philosophy. Now, what do the scriptures say? What is Shruti Mata saying? Such people are mudha. See the term used, mudha, foolish people. According to them, they think dhiraha panditaha. According to them, they are very wise people, intelligent people. But according to scriptures, they are mudha. Now please keep this in mind. In life you will meet such people, or maybe in the past you were one among them. Generally all of us, we have to go through this stage. There was some time when we all were having such kind of ideas. Today maybe we are all spiritual people, but sometime in the past we were of this nature. We were having this philosophy of life. And now today when you are spiritual, you will find such people around you. You will meet somebody or the other who is of this nature. This is essential. Why is it essential? This is essential because these are the people who make us think deep about the purpose of life, about the meaning of life. These are the people who will try to pull you back into the world, who will not allow you to get into the spiritual world, who will try their level best to pull you, to prevent you from going into the spiritual world. So when they pull you, you will have to exert against it. You will have to think deep. If the vairagya is very weak, then you will say, yes, what this person is saying, he has a point, so let me give a spirituality, you may go back to him. But if your mumukshutvam is strong, if your spiritual quest is intense, deep, then you start thinking. Whatever reasons, whatever logic, whatever statement he has given, you start thinking over it. You contemplate upon it. Get guidance from the Mahatmas. You put the same question in front of Mahatmas and get the right guidance. From the scriptures you get guidance, and perfectly, logically you get perfect answer for all the allegations made by this non-spiritual person. And this way you become a really strong spiritual person. And then what happens? You renounce. Without bothering about all these allegations, the complaints, the arguments given by this non-spiritual person. This struggle is unavoidable in our life. It is exactly like the struggle of a fruit. So on one side is a gravitational pull which wants the fruit to fall from the tree. The other side is the tree which is trying to hold on to the fruit and not allowing it to fall. So there is a struggle continuously. But as the fruit becomes fully grown and matured and ripened, what happens? Detachment automatically happens, and then finally there is only one pull, that is the pull of gravitation, and finally the fruit falls. So this is the renunciation of fruit from the tree. In the same way, there is something called renunciation of the mind from the world. When that mind becomes extremely mature, pure, evolved, such a mind no more finds pleasure in the world. Such a mind is pulled toward the spiritual gravitational force. And such a mind will no more be able to be controlled by the world and the worldly attractions. The mind easily gravitates towards spirituality. This is what we find. So this struggle is unavoidable, and such people you will find in the society. So such people are being described here. So this is their philosophy about life. So what happens to them? So here Upanishad says, Dandramyamanaha pariyanti mudhaha. Such foolish people who have no idea about life, but they think that they are very wise and learned, etc. What happens to them? Dandramyamanaha. in their life you will find all kinds of crookedness and wickedness. Because their very philosophy is a truthful person cannot survive, he cannot succeed in life. So naturally, what will they do? They will earn wealth through all illegal, immoral, unlawful means. They will earn wealth. They will try to influence the powerful people. They will never walk the path of truth. Through wealth, they will try to solve all the problems. Now, this is the meaning, crooked and wicked. They will indulge in all kinds of sense pleasures. Their mind totally indisciplined. Such sensuous, extroverted people, what happens to them? Yamarāja says, paryanti. Paryanti means going round and round and round. They suffer in this world also. Then they go to Naraka, where again they suffer. Again they come back, again they suffer. This suffering continues. In fact, suffering is the only way to purify the mind. So when the understanding is wrong, the punishment given by Mother Nature is suffering. In suffering, you become introspective, you look within, you correct yourself, and then you evolve. So therefore, wrong understanding is no excuse. The price you have to pay for wrong understanding is suffering. So paryanti means they go on suffering. Old age, death, disease, this is the suffering in this world. So punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam is the result, and it is not necessary that they will be born again in human body. Tesham dvishata kruran samsareshu naradhaman kshipami ajasrama shubhan asurishveva yonishu. If their kama, krodha, lobha, moha, etc. is very intense, Bhagavan says, I even throw them into the wombs of the beasts, lions, tigers, insects, animals, birds, etc. So even that option is not also ruled out. So this is the meaning paryanti. So they may call themselves dhira, pandita, etc. But the fact remains, and that is they are mudhas only. And the laws of nature, it doesn't depend on what you think about yourself. The laws of nature has its own way to function. Now unfortunately, the scriptures say, andhena niyamana yathandha. These are the blind people who are leading others blind. Now others are also blind. Now these people, they are also blind, but they say, they claim that I know the path, come with me. Now what is this person? He is blind. But what does he claim? I know everything. I know everything. You just follow me and I will show you the way. Andhena niyamana thanda. And finally what happens? Everybody suffers. Now what is this blindness? We have to understand, it is not the physical blindness. Blindness means the inability to have the right understanding about life. Now this is called as blindness. Earlier it is said manda, the same thing. The intellect is not able to discriminate the right from the wrong, and therefore the intellect takes the wrong path. Now taking the wrong path means a blind intellect, unable to know what is the purpose of life, have no clear understanding about life, and therefore what happens? Every decision taken is wrong. This is what happens, and this is what we see in the society also. When you don't have the right knowledge, see what happens. The most important knowledge in this world is self-knowledge, because it gives you liberation. But now what is the kind of knowledge which we are giving importance to in today's world? Materialistic education is given, not spiritual education. See? Why is it that materialistic education is given too much of importance in schools and colleges? It is only because of andhata, blindness. We don't know the value of spiritual knowledge. Therefore, materialistic knowledge is given importance. Why materialistic knowledge? Because then you will get a job and you will get a lot of money. Now see, vittamayim shrinkam, earlier the term is used. Ultimately the purpose of goal is make lot of money, because lot of money means a conducive environment. A conducive environment means joy, happiness. This is their wrong thinking. So see the kind of knowledge which we are giving importance to in this society. Not spiritual, but materialistic knowledge. Bread winning education is given. So with respect to knowledge, this is the blindness. What is the most important thing? That we don't know. What is the least important thing? That's what we give so much of importance to. The worthless things have become priceless things. The most important thing is cultivating noble virtues of life, Daivi Sampat. But what are the youngsters doing today? Not only youngsters, everyone. The importance is given to the color of the skin, the color of the hair, the hairstyles. Lot of research is happening with respect to what you call different kinds of surgeries in the body. Our dress, jewelry, and these are the things which have become important now. Earlier there were only women's beauty parlor. Now we have men's beauty parlor also. Entire focus is upon this human body. No importance is given to beautifying the mind. Only importance is given is beautifying the physical body. In Bhagavatam it is said, in Kali Yuga the importance will be given to hair and nail, it seems. And that is true. All this is happening because of blindness, not knowing the very purpose of life. Who is the most beautiful person in this world? Now you see this beauty context, etc. What is the definition of beauty according to them? Artificial makeup plus artificial body parts, artificial smile, and then if you can parade your half-naked body in front of a bunch of fools, then you are considered the most beautiful lady. Miss World, Miss Universe. What is the definition of beauty given by Bhagavan? In Tulsi Ramayana you will find Bhagavan Sri Ramchandraji addressing Shabari Mata. So she was old, and not only she was old, she was quite ugly also. And it is said that her husband ran away seeing her ugliness. Now you can just imagine. After marriage, that man, the moment he saw her face, he just ran away from there. So this lady Shabari, who was ugly and old, Bhagavan Ramchandraji in Tulsi Ramayana, you will find Bhagavan calling her the most beautiful lady in this world. See the definition of beauty. Why Bhagavan calls her the most beautiful lady? Bhagavan says, you have all those bhakti, Navavidha bhakti, the 9 forms of devotion you have in full measure. So Amma, you are the most beautiful lady in this world. Now see the definition of beauty there. It is not the physical beauty, no. It is the inner beauty. The blind people, they only see the physical beauty. But those who have wisdom, those who have knowledge, they see the inner beauty. See the difference. Andhera niyamana yathanda. Today is the world of advertisement. Any lie can be made truth by again and again telecasting the same lie. So whatever is happening in today's world, everything was written in Vedic times. Just imagine. Means what? The world was like this only all the time. And it will remain like this. Majority are blind, following the path towards hell. This will continue. In this world, the greatest lie is made the greatest truth by advertisements. What is the greatest lie? The greatest lie is that you can be happy in the world, with the world, through the world. This is the greatest lie. What is the greatest truth? Happiness is my own nature. Now these people, they don't want you to know this great truth that happiness is your nature, because suppose you become contented and indrawn, then what will happen to their business, their industry? Everything will collapse. They want people to be more and more greedy, more and more desire filled, more and more extrovert, more and more sensuous. Only then the business can flourish. So therefore, what kind of advertisement is given? All false advertisements are given. Indulge in the world and be happy. This is the advertisement. But what is the truth? Be contented and be happy, because happiness is your nature. This is the truth. But the world doesn't want you to know this truth. You see, andhena niyamana yathanda. Everybody in this world, if you see, who are the votaries of the world, they are all blind. And what are they doing? The greatest tragedy is, these are the leaders in the society who are guiding others. So what will happen? Blind leading the blind. The next verse also is related to the same thing. We will see this verse in the next class. Om sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet, asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om shanti shanti shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.